Yuuki Sakurai, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Did this figure surprise you in terms of it being much, much worse than economists had been penciling in?
Well, yes, it was a little bit worse than the forecast, but the earthquake happened at the 11th of March, and the quarter of the GDP only counts about 20 days of the 3 months or so. So it could be up and down, and the market is already looking into the next quarter and the following quarters.
And indeed, what is the read-through for that period?
Right. Obviously, this is a recovery period, so we forecast that the quarter for April, for the period of April to June, will be a little bit maybe worse than the figure we see at this moment. And also the summertime, if we are going to have a very hot summer, the government is demanding the cut of the use of the electricity because of the shortage of the power supply, meaning the manufacturers cannot go into the full productions. So we have to go into the next quarter, which is October to December.
Okay, I wanted to also just say to you, well, what about those machinery orders numbers that we got? We were expecting a contraction there. We got some positivity on the upside. How does that sit next to your forecast for further declines in GDP?
Right. The most recent machinery order was very strong, but we have to discount some of the cancellation which may happen after the April or so. So what we have to see is the next machinery orders, which could mean that rather negative figure than the figure we have seen just at this moment.
Right. So many economists talking about the so-called V-shaped recovery. Are you buying into that?
I don't think so. We may see the V-shaped recovery after the summer, because the summertime, as I mentioned, if you're going to face a very hot summer like the last summertime, we obviously have to cut more of the usage of the electricity, and maybe government demands more of the cut rather than 50% or to 20% or so. So the manufacturer will be very much cautious about going into the full productions.
Many people have said that you can't really compare this with the Kobe earthquake in the 90s. What do you make of that?
Yes, I think I agree with that. When going back to the experience of Kobe earthquake back in 1995, the personal consumption was rather firm, and also the public spending started slowly, but it followed for the next couple of years or so. And also the capital expenditure was rather strong from the first hand. Because this time we have experienced a very strong tsunami, which means that the people have to rebuild the shape of the countryside so that they could avoid the next tsunami, which may face in the next maybe 5, 10, 20 years or so.
Okay, well, how do you rate the Bank of Japan's response and the government's response overall to this crisis, and indeed the response, of course, originally to the earthquake and the tsunami, and what they're doing now?
Right. The government is having trouble of raising the funds because they're already short of the money, as Mr. Mike Fern has already mentioned before this program, and the debt is about twice of the GDP. And they have to pass a law, and they have to always consult with the opposition parties. Whereas the government of Japan, the Bank of Japan can act on its own. And I think they're helping very much of the banks which operates on the tsunami areas, tsunami which was destroyed by tsunami and earthquakes. Obviously, these banks are short of their funds. They have lost their borrowers. And the Bank of Japan is doing their best to support the financial system in these areas.
Ironically, it's corporate Japan, though, which is still cash-rich, isn't it?
Oh, that's true. The individual and the corporate Japan is very much cash-rich. So I don't think their demand for their money to the banks. They are very cautious of how and where to build their factories in Japan. Because if the earthquake happened in Fukushima, we may have another earthquake elsewhere. But they were looking to the safest place, but they obviously need to rebuild their factories as soon as possible. So I think they are in a rather, let's say, awkward position of deciding how to reconstruct its own companies. So this is a little bit different with the Hanshin Awaji earthquake period.
Let's also just look at the strength of the yen. It's been pretty stubborn, and we've still, seen it just around the 80, 82 level, thereabouts. Does this stubbornness for it not to get any weaker surprise you?
Right. Obviously, the strong yen is not favoring Japan at this moment, especially for the exporters. But this time, what we see, what is different was right after the earthquake, which was around 12th or 13th of March. This time it's at weak euros and weak dollars because of the economic conditions in these continents, which is not strong yen. People have to buy yen because there's a weak euro and weak dollars. So this is a very, very making difficult situation for Bank of Japan. Whether they can intervene or not is going to be a very tricky subject.
Sakurai-san, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yuuki Sakurai there from Fukoku Capital.